started doing them many years ago when we were live at Dallas for the World Congresses, when we would set out by the pool and be able to sit down and chat with a small group, small enough, and you had to be able to stand cigars because we always had cigars. So to come out and be a part of the chat, you didn't have to smoke cigars, you just had to be able to be around them. But it was a nice group where people would ask questions, and we had the privilege of answering questions as best we could, simply because we've been around for a long time, longer than most other people at this point. And we started out pretty young. We started out in logotherapy. I didn't really have an intent to become involved in logotherapy, and searching for a meaning and purpose in life or a philosophy regarding how I understood things wasn't actually what I was looking for. But I happened to be on internship for clinical psychology in Gulfport, Mississippi, and this guy, Jim Crumbaugh, happened to be there. I was interested in several things. Uh, One was how to deal with difficult people. And Jim worked for or with the most difficult psychiatrist we had there and got along with him well. So I thought, I could learn some stuff about that. I also was interested in publishing at that point in time. And Jim had published several articles, some books, some tests, and I wanted to find out how he did that. So my training director suggested I talk with Jim and uh, find out about whether he would work with me and those things I was interested in. And Jim said, yes, I could work with him. But if I did that, I'd have to study this stuff called logotherapy. And I thought, okay, I have enough interests in new things and different things that I'll go ahead for the 4 months that I'm going to work with him and I'll study this stuff. He wanted me to sit in on groups, and the groups were led by Jim or by Rosemary Henry on. Wanted me to read the books that were available at that point in time, and there were like three, four that all there were in English. So yeah, I could do that for a little bit. And then it turns out that I liked what I read. I thought, oh, wow, this really fits me. I haven't been thinking in this direction about what fits me and my philosophy, but this really fits me. Not totally, but more than anything else I've come across. And that's how I got started, not looking for meaning and purpose in life, but rather just I had to do it because I wanted to work with Jim. Vicki was also not looking for a particular meaning, purpose, and direction in life, but she just came along as I was there and said, well, this makes sense to me too. So that's how we got started in this. I don't know if most people got started just by logotherapy finding them like we did, or if most people were really seeking a philosophy and decided, this is a pretty good one, I'll keep looking at this. So I don't think we can go around and ask everyone, but maybe we can say if you just happened across logotherapy, if it just fell in your lap and made sense to you, um, raise your hand. Um, okay. And I'll assume the others were seeking a meaning and purpose in life. But we got on the screen that I've got, there was a lot of people holding their hand saying that they had logotherapy just come across them. Okay. So, one result of our being involved in logotherapy was that throughout the years, Vicki and I and our daughters, Daisy and Jilly, attended the World Congresses together, many of them. If you were around back then, and you probably ran into Daisy and Jilly. And Daisy is now 49,
Yeah, about that.
best as we can remember. Daisy's about 49, and Jilly would then be 2 years younger than that. So they're not children anymore. In the process of going to those World Congresses, we met and dined with and interacted with many of the old timers in logotherapy. And our daughters met many of them also. Um, I'll let Vicki tell us a little bit about some of her memories of going to the World Congresses and so on.
Okay. The World Congress has provided many opportunities for our family for meaningful travels that we probably would not have taken otherwise. Our daughters, Daisy and Jilly, always came with us until they finished high school and went off to college. The first I remember is the 1984 Congress in San Francisco, which was immediately followed by training with Dr. Lucas. And lost my place. Okay. In the training with Dr. Lucas was in Berkeley, and Bob attended that while the girls and I hung out around Berkeley. And that was the first time the girls saw Dr. Frankl up close. And that was in an elevator in the hotel we were staying in Berkeley. And he was a small man of short stature. And he got on and of course, the girls had heard of him through Bob's work. So they were expecting a much bigger person. And he got on the elevator and he wasn't much taller than our daughters. So we got off the elevator and one of them turns to Bob and says, "Who was that, Dad?" And he said, "That was Dr. Frankl." And that was the first time they had met him. So they were kind of surprised by that. Um, in Toronto in 1993, they got to hang out with the Frankl grandchildren, Alex and Katya. Will Fink was the longtime institute director. He and his wife, Margaret Davis Fink, who was treasurer, played a major role in organizing the World Congresses. They always were exceptionally welcoming with our children, planning events that they thought would appeal to the younger generations, when oftentimes our children were the only members of that generation present. My first meeting with the quote old guard of logotherapy was in 1974 in Gulfport, Mississippi, where we lived just a couple blocks from Jim Crumbaugh and had many chances to visit with him. Jim came to Knoxville for a presentation to Bob's students and staff at the VA hospital. He stayed at our house, had meals with our children, and played with them. A few years later, Joe Fabry came and did the same thing. Well, by that time, the girls were 6 and 4, and Joe had a good time playing with them in our living room. Still later, Will Fink stayed with us, and most of you know that Will did not fly. And so he and Margaret lived in California, which is like 1,500 miles from Knoxville, Iowa, or 500 kilometers. Is that right?
I think it'd be more like 2,500.
2,500, you put 500. Over the years, we went to many work congresses and met with members of the Institute and many of the old guard who are no longer with us. These include persons like Pat Stark, Bob and Dorothy Barnes, Bob and Paula Leslie, Robin Goodenough, Bianca Hirsch, Paul Welter, Rosemary Henryon, Jerry Long, and Mignon Eisenberg, along with Jim Crumbaugh. We enjoyed meals with several persons who remain with us today, like Alex Battiani, Jay Levinson, and many others.
So the two people that we actually got to know the best and spent the most time with were Jim Crumbaugh and Joe Fabry. With Jim, I remember my strongest memories are his encouragement of my interest in logotherapy and his willingness to let me develop logo analysis exercises under his supervision and let me try the exercises on his inpatient groups. Now, those were groups that he led, but also Rosemary Henryon led them. But they let me try out my exercises on them also and encouraged me in the development of those. Another memory of Jim Crumbaugh is his extended answers to any question that you asked him. I'm not sure how he ever got anything ordered at a restaurant because it would have taken at least an hour for him to answer the question, what would you like to order? But he he provided all kinds of information during his answers, and the information all came together in the end. You had to follow, but it came together and he gave you the answer. When he was here in Knoxville, and we had some time when it was just our psychology interns and Jim, he presented over the course of a couple of days, but there was an hour just for the interns. And I told the interns, get an answer, get a question, agree on the question, one question. We've only got an hour, and that will be the one question that Jim will answer. And sure enough, they came up with a question, and it took him the hour. He presented all kinds of interesting and useful information. It all came back together in the end, and there was the answer. But you had to stay with it. So he had a lot of varied interests. People don't always know that he was kind of a big name in handwriting analysis. And in fact, his second wife, we never knew his first wife, but his second wife, Teresa, was a really well-known graphoanalyst. He was also an amateur magician, and he at one time was interested in parapsychology and did a fair amount of research in parapsychology until he decided this all I'm getting is negative results. I don't think it's a real thing, and so I'm not going to continue in that. As Jim became older, he looked ever more like Colonel Sanders of Kentucky Fried Chicken. And so what Jim did with that was he bought clothes, the white clothes that Colonel Sanders always wore. He bought clothes just like Colonel Sanders and wore those out to the restaurants and various places he went. So he had kind of a sense of humor there. So with Jim, Frankl's ideas really caught my attention, and that's where I first began to become involved with Viktor Frankl's philosophy and direction in life. About this time, this is in the mid 1970s, Vicki and I started our family, Daisy, and our values pulled us back home, which was Iowa. So we're coming to you from Iowa now because we're still here in a little house on the edge of the cornfield in the middle of the state. So we left Gulfport in 1976. I took a job at the Veterans Administration Neuropsychiatric Hospital in Knoxville, Iowa. VA is where I worked with Jim. I was on VA scholarship when I was in graduate school. So my whole career was with the VA. So we moved up here to another VA hospital. And part of my job included coordination of a symposium, an annual symposium. And for one of these in 1977, I brought Jim up to present to us on logotherapy. It went very well with our group. And we had a major audience in our large auditorium, but I told you about the one small audience where we just had our psychology interns, and there were about 7 or 8 of them at that point in time. And it went so well that I thought, okay, let's do this again. So about 5 years later, this is the early 1980s, I tried to get Jim to come back. Jim said, no, I've already done my thing there. I don't think he wanted to come to Iowa, but he said, I've already done my thing there. And I tell you what, I would recommend. Why don't you contact this guy in California? His name is Joe Fabry, and he's the organizer of a really young institute, and he kind of wants to make it bigger. And so maybe he'll consider coming out of California to talk with you. So I called Joe Fabry, got his number. I don't know, remember if I got it from Jim or how I got his number, but I got his phone number and I called him and he said, yeah, I'll come out and I'll talk with you. So he came, he stayed in our house and uh, played with our children, as Vicki said. We hit it off well together. And among the topics that he talked about with me was his pride in publishing the International Forum for Logotherapy. Uh, at one point, we asked Jim or we asked Joe to tell us about the history of the Forum for Logotherapy. And he sent back, this was all in letters back then. We hardly ever made phone calls because they cost a lot of money and we didn't have anything like the internet. So he sent back a letter, and Vicki's going to read to you about some of the early history from the letter that Joe sent us.
Okay, this is a brief history of the forum sent by Joe. In 1997, he wrote this letter. As to the early history, in 1974, I began publishing a semi-annual magazine, UniQuest, for a readership in Unitarian churches. Each issue had a topic: ecological imperative, intimate ethics, painful wisdom of the survivor. I reprinted articles from other magazines with the author's permission, as well as original material. The magazine became more and more logotherapeutic and had articles by Frankl. The last issue in 1978 was completely Frankl, called Festival of Meaning, containing papers read at the opening of the Viktor Frankl Library memorabilia in Berkeley. By that time, I had established the Institute of Logotherapy and decided to publish the magazine under the title of the International Forum for Logotherapy as the publication of the Institute. So what this tells us is the first official issue of the journal, the International Forum for Logotherapy, Journal of Search for Meaning, was published by Joe in 1978. Articles published under the primary editorship of Joe Fabry were winter through 1978 through fall of 1989. In the late 1980s, Bob began helping Joe with the journal. In 1990, Bob became co-editor with Joe. Articles published under the co-editorship of Joe Fabry and Bob Hutzell were spring 1990 through spring 1999, when Joe had to stop editing due to health issues. Bob continued the primary editorship from autumn 1999 through fall 2016, excuse me. Marshall Lewis came on board and assisted from 2014 through 2016 issue of, where am I? Oh, then Anne Marie Neal came on board for 2017 and 2018. After the spring issue of 2018, Bob retired from the forum and it went into hiatus until 2020 when Cindy Wimberly edited and Rob Deeser assisted edited an electronic issue. Then Rod became editor for future issues.
So early on, I had told Joe that I was interested in publishing still. And he took that to heart and asked if I would edit a few papers for him, which I said, yeah, I'd like to do that. And I did. And then he sent more papers and then more papers and then more papers. So that in 1990, one of the letters I received from Joe said, you're doing so much work on the journal that you'll notice when the next issue arrives, and it's in the mail now, that you're co-editor of the journal now. So that was a surprise, but it was okay with me that he just decided I was going to do that. And then as we went along, he recognized that Vicki was doing quite a bit of work and that she had good administrative and organizational skills too. So he let her take on more and more until finally he said, you know, you're doing a really good job at this work of putting together and producing the journal, and I'm really not liking it that much anyway. Why don't you be the production manager? Which she did. So in 1992, he appointed Vicki the production manager of the International Forum for Logotherapy. And she's got a few things about how that went.
This one?
Yep.
I started working with the forum in the mid 1980s, shortly after Bob started to help Joe Fabry. Initially, I mostly made computer inputs of papers that came as typed manuscripts in the postal mail, complete articles, but over time, I increasingly assisted Bob with some aspects of the editing. As papers came in, Bob did most of the main content editing. Sometimes there were special issues with issue editors or assistant editors who did this. Then I got a copy to proofread, looking for errors in grammar, punctuation, etc. The copies went back and forth to the authors for approval. Once we received final approval, Bob and I did a final proofread together. Then the papers were ready for publication. Joe handed over more and more of the production work to me until 1992. He gave the last of it to me and named me production manager. After that, all of the inputting was done here in Knoxville, and we produced camera-ready pages on a laser printer to send to the printing house in San Francisco. While waiting for the journals to be printed, I secured the membership list, stamped envelopes, affixed mailing labels, and completed paperwork per postal requirements. Once the journals arrived from the printing house, then we put them in the prepared envelopes. The domestic all went to the post office together for bulk rate postage. The issues then went to countries outside of the US took extra time because each one had to be individually accepted by a postal clerk. I spent many hours standing at the post office under that old system. Once the forms were in the mail, we waited. Usually there were a number of journals returned to us and also some address changes that came back. Sometimes the forms took a year or more to come back. If a journal was returned to us, we had an email contact for the recipient. We requested their current address information, resent the form to them. If the journal came back and we had no contact with the recipient, it went back into the collection of journals we kept on hand.
So Joe at that point was doing mostly editorial work and none of the production work. And then towards the end of that decade, one of his letters came to us and said, I really hesitate to say this, but I've got heart problems and I'm not doing that well. And you're now the only editor of the journal. So he surprised me again. He just said, Bob, you're in charge. I'm not going to do it anymore. And it wasn't long before he passed away after that. Some of my outstanding memories of Joe include how much he encouraged others to become involved in logotherapy. He was quick to see your interests and your abilities and talk you into taking the opportunities to become more involved and giving you responsibilities. He was very quick to do that. He was very good at that. There were a few times he got burned by taking people so quick that they didn't follow through. But most of the time he had it figured out and he got people really involved to the degree that they were willing to do so. He was, at the time we knew him, he was very grandfatherly, very supportive, open to new ideas, open to innovations. However, he wasn't all accepting of everything. He'd let you know if he disagreed with you. He was always nice about it. And we had several disagreements over time. He won some, I won some. I do remember one when that he was particularly upset with a paper that made it into the forum that he thought was too gushy. And he hadn't paid close attention at that point to all the papers that were going in. So he let me know that he thought that was way too gushy and he'd just as soon I didn't do that again. And then it was, a week or so later that I got the next letter from him. And he said something about the value that he had for friendship. And although it got on me a bit, he wanted me to know that for sure I had a friend in him. So I thought that was nice that he followed that up. He said, yeah, I know I got on you, but I still am your friend. He and I had several differences of opinion over the years. However, they were generally collegial, well thought through, and focused on learning rather than winning. I remember that we went back and forth because, again, this was all by letter. We went back and forth 5 or 6 times about one word. I don't remember which word it was, but it was an interpretation of a word. And I thought it should be one way, and he thought it should be the other way. And I think in the end, I won that one because he gave up with wanting to discuss it. So he said, go ahead and it'll work both ways. Do it the way you want to do it. So we changed the one word. So that's kind of the things that we remember about Joe. I remember him at our place playing with our kids in our living room when he stayed with us. So that's my editorial style came a lot from what was promoted by Joe. And in that, he really wanted to support people, encourage people. And I took on that style. That style fit with me. And that was not the general style of editors at that point in time, maybe still now. I also edited for several other journals, including American Psychological Association journals, and that was not the style there. There, few words were said. You reviewed a paper, generally looked for some reason to reject the paper and send it back. Whereas we were more of the style of let's make this an educational experience. Let's send back positive reviews, even if we have to reject the paper. And there were a number of papers we had to reject for a number of reasons. But we always tried to teach the people we were rejecting why we were rejecting the paper and how they could turn the paper around and make it into one that was acceptable. And a lot of those people then did that. And a lot of times it was 3, 4, 5 correspondences back and forth before we were done with the paper. Whereas with APA editing, it was just simply, it's rejected. If you want to start over again, go ahead. That's on you. But that's that. So as a consequence, we accepted a much higher percentage of papers than did APA journals because we would go back and forth and try to help them get them to where they could be acceptable papers that fit within the context of our journal. Sometimes people sent in papers that just did not fit Frankl's philosophy or misinterpreted the philosophy. We would send back and say, here's how you misinterpreted, here's what the interpretation should be, and let's work on this if we can. Sometimes they did, sometimes they didn't. Over the course of all those years, there were only 2 times that I got back really nasty comments about the editing and wanting to take it on to the next level. And I was pretty confident in what I was doing, and so I readily said, well, here's the board's number. Go ahead and contact them if you want to. But again, there was just twice that people were really irritated by the fact that we did not publish their paper. One paper of those, I remember half of it was a good paper and the other half was a harangue about some incident that had happened in the Institute. And I said, well, we'll publish the first half, but I'm not going to just start harangues that can be responded to only 6 months later and then re-responded to 6 months after that. And the other paper was off topic, would have filled up like 2/3 of the journal. And the author demanded that the paper be published uncut, no editing. And it wasn't that good of writing in the first place. And that person got very upset with me for saying, I'm not going to give you 2/3 of the next journal space for your paper, but we can do this and this and this. And they said no, they didn't want it that way. Now, there were other rejections that did not result in long negative papers being sent back to me or long negative responses or letters. So those are only 2 out of hundreds of papers. So I actually felt that was pretty good that they came back that way. And I attributed part of that to the style that we were using, which was, we'll try and help you figure out how to get this paper published rather than, no, this is wrong, go away. So those are some of my memories regarding editorial philosophy, regarding my psychotherapy philosophy, I take a lot of that back to Jim Crumbaugh. And of course, my first experience with any kind of logotherapy was Jim's logo analysis out of his book, Everything to Gain. And there he focused on structured mental exercises to clarify individuals' personally meaningful values, and then follow that with practical goals that allow you to actualize those personally meaningful values. And I took that and went further with that and developed my own exercises. As I said, he supervised a lot of those and encouraged those, and went beyond values clarification and goals to plans to reach those goals, followed by activities that would help you maximize your assets and minimize your deficits towards reaching those goals, for which you had the plans to actualize your values. So there are four main steps. And eventually, one of our interns said, you ought to publish that. And I said, well, you're good with computers and you're the one that wants to do that. So let's do that together. And so we did. And that came out as the workbook, the Meaningful and Purposeful Goals workbook. So eventually that was published. And I think that's available on the website for the Institute still. I haven't looked recently, but I know it was not too long ago, still available on the Institute's website. So it's a free download now. So I guess we'll jump ahead. We only have an hour, right? Does anybody think it's
Minda's
6
saying
hours or 8 hours or anything?
Minda's saying
Total
We'll just
one
go
and a
with an
half
hour.
hour though.
We'll just go with an
1.5
hour. So that's some of the old stuff, the people we knew, or just, the two we knew the best. I thought we could cover that a little bit. Let's jump ahead to where we're at now. We're obviously in retirement. Actually, we're in our 14th year of retirement. So I thought I'll just check to see the definitions of senior citizen and wonder where we're at. Well, I looked up all I could find and we met all of them. So every definition I could find, we're a senior citizen. So I said, okay, well, let's look at geriatric then. Let's look at it from a different angle. Well, we met them all again. However, I did find one categorization. It's a medical stages of aging. In the medical stages of aging, we're not in the highest category. We're in middle old. So I felt good about not being in the top category. The top category is old, and you've got to be 85 or more to get into that category. So we are admittedly old, and we're feeling it and recognizing it. And that brings the issue to our mind, and I suspect to many people's minds as you get older, the transitoriness of life. And in Man's Search for Meaning, Frankl says, usually to be sure, man considers only the stubble field of transitoriness and overlooks the full granaries of the past, wherein he had salvaged once and for all his deeds, his joys, and also his sufferings. Nothing can be undone and nothing can be done away with. So I take this to say older people often look only at what they've lost or what is no longer possible. and forget to value everything they've already done, their achievements, the joys, and even the hardships. So, with that in mind, and the fact that we're old, to counter this, I took up writing about my contents of my granaries from the past. This not only recalls to mind our experiences, choices, and lessons learned, but also I have another purpose in mind. And that is to pass this information on to our grandchildren and perhaps beyond. So, and I've talked to other people about doing this, and they say, well, that makes sense. They aren't logotherapists, but it makes sense to write. And I'd feel good about writing down. And so I've got other people that have started writing their memories to leave to their grandchildren. And I had, in my mind, I had lists of things that were important to me, but I wanted to turn these into something a little more interesting than a list. So when I retired in 2012, I joined a local writing critique group. Now, these folks write interesting stories and novels. So I thought, okay, I can take my list of memories and say, well, from your perspective of trying to write something that's more interesting than a list, how would we work on this? And in 2015, I added another critique group. So now I have two critique groups, and I'm writing these stories under the title that I have for them. The general title is Stories I Might Tell My Grandkids. And a number of these, of course, are going to be about logotherapy because we've had such a long involvement in logotherapy. So I've written a number of logotherapy stories to pass on to my grandkids. Now, they aren't only going to be for my grandkids. I've sent them copies to my children. If you're like us, there are a lot of things that went on in your life that your children really didn't know about. Even when they were around, they didn't always know what was going on. So I've sent these to my children, to other family members, a handful of close friends that know us well, and to those persons that are in the stories, if they're still alive, which eliminates about half of the people that are in the stories. But I've sent them to these people that are part of these stories because they go back to, well, one of them goes back to high school, but they mostly start around the 1970s. And in so doing, some of these people we really haven't had much contact with for years, but this has generated more contact with them and renewed old relationships in several places. One of them that I particularly enjoyed was writing a story in which I was talking about Vicki's cooking and a particular recipe that she was making and how we'd got that from a friend like 50 years ago. And they're on the list of the people that are still alive. So they get the copies of the stories eventually. And so when they read that story, they wrote back and they said, oh my, that's an old family recipe, which we have lost. Send us the recipe, which we did. So they now have this old family recipe of theirs back in their cookbook. Now, in doing this writing, my goal had many purposes, including the main one, which is leaving these ideas for the grandkids or others to help me remember or fill my full granary, remember what's in there. Because you don't always keep that stuff in mind unless you sit down and intentionally say, now, what have we done? So publication wasn't a goal, but because I was writing for these people that do publish their mostly fiction stories, I tried to write up to that level that they could be published. And opportunities came along for me to publish some of them. So the papers were ready, and I took the attitude that I'm not going to write anything for publication. I've done that in the past. I don't want to spend my effort on the publishing side. I'm doing the writing side. It's a totally different thing than the publishing side. I'm not going to try to publish these. But opportunities came along, and I would say, okay, I like this vehicle, and the stories are already done. So, okay, I'll send them in. And as a result, there have been a number of actually live presentations, journal articles, and book chapters that came about while I wasn't trying to publish anything. One example of a publication that you might be interested in actually pieced together three of my stories for my grandkids. And this was examples of applications of logotherapy. That's the title of it, and it's in the Springer publication, the Logotherapy and Existential Analysis Proceedings of the Viktor Frankl Institute of Vienna, Volume 2, which came out, I think, maybe within the last year. But and it's a pretty big journal, and as I remember, it was really expensive, but I got a free copy for having an article in there. So we did get a copy of that. And that's a story. Well, that's three stories. Like I say, it's three stories that Charles McLafferty asked me about publishing there because he was one of the editors, and I have at first said, well, I'm not doing that kind of stuff. And then he came back again and said, here's what we're looking for. And I said, okay, I've got these three stories I can put together, and they're all on the topic of the application of logotherapy. Some applying it to myself and some applying it to patients. There's patients on locked wards in neuropsychiatric hospital that were very upset and causing a lot of problems for staff. And although I didn't work on that ward, I was frequently called into that ward because I had worked on that ward and used logotherapy to help these patients calm down and make their way out of the ward in the past. So I kept getting called back to that ward to do logotherapy on these particularly difficult patients. So that's one of the stories. And then I also had a private practice in the local hospital, and I was frequently called in there to patients who their physicians had to tell them their diagnosis was terminal, and they weren't handling it very well, which it's not a surprise. I don't know that I'll handle it very well. But then I had done that for a physician or two, and then the word spread that, get Bob to come in and do this logotherapy stuff, whatever it is, because it helps the patients to do better with the fact that they are going to die. So there was a story in there that I'd written to my grandkids about doing that work. And then there were some stories about applying group work with the Meaningful and Purposeful Goals workbook that I talked about with people with PTSD and addictions and so on. So those are, like I say, those are three different stories, and said, okay, we'll put them all together and we publish them there. So that's kind of where we're at now, starting back at the very beginning when I wasn't intending to do any of this, to the present where we have done an awful lot of this. So we could probably talk for the next 6 hours, but Memda says it's an hour long. But that's some of the history and so on. Does anybody have any particular question or comment that we should tackle at this point?
I have a question, if possible.
Okay.
Sure.
I can't tell who it is, but
My name is in Kirillitsa because I'm from Ukraine. My name is Julia, and it was a great luck. Today I saw the letter from your institute, as I'm user of your site, and it's a great treasure for me as trainer of Ukrainian Institute of Viktor Frankl. Lots of articles for my practice and for doing with students. And when I saw today your link about James Crumbaugh, it was a great luck because, we are living in war and are not accessible with different materials. It's hard for us. And I was looking for a logo analysis and for his books. And already my friend who is living now in USA, he bought it for me, and this book is going by sea to Ukraine for a long time. And I'm
Yes.
waiting for it with great pleasure to all people who helped. So when I saw that the case will be about Crumbaugh, it was very interesting for me. And I'm very grateful to be with you, with people who knew Dr. Frankl alive, because he was really great person. We are very new association, it's only 3 years in Ukraine. So that's why all connects with you, with people who is for a long time with logotherapy is great. And my questions, I have two questions. One question, you told that you have some materials on your site from Crumbaugh, but I didn't see. If you can share with me, it will be a great luck for me. And also, you told about your tales. You see my screen. I'm making fairy tales in therapeutical surrounding, and just yesterday finished the short course for another therapist on fairy tales. And if I can read your tales, it will be also a great luck for me.
Okay. Regarding publications, what I have, what I was talking about was the workbook to increase meaningful and purposeful goals, which is based on what Jim Crumbaugh did, but it adds 2 additional steps. I don't know if you already have that, but it is on the on the website from the USA. It's also on the website from Vienna, and I've seen it other places. So that's what I have there. And yeah, I can send you a couple of the stories and let you see what they're looking like. If you can send me an email, that way I'll have your email address. My email address is Hutzell's. It's just our last name with an S, Hutzels at Iowa Telecom, IOWATELECOM.net. So if anybody else is interested in a story or two, I'm glad to share them.
I would like to add a memory, if possible.
Sure. Go
I
ahead.
believe, if I'm not mistaken, we met 30 years ago for the first time in a congress where we attended. That was the first time we met. Then I remember that when you were the editor of the forum, I sent you an article, and I must say you were very accurate and very strict, and I believe that it was very important for the forum to be so. But you were also very helpful to in editing that particular article, which was published later on. And
Thank
for
you.
that, I still want to thank you very much for what you have done.
Well, I appreciate that because that's exactly what we were trying to do with the editing of the forum. So I appreciate hearing that feedback.
Batya
Yeah.
would like to
Yeah,
take over.
I'd also, I need to leave already. I just want to say that I appreciated so much also when I wrote an article for the forum, and you were so helpful. You're so encouraging, and you just gave back and forth, gave me exactly what I needed to hear. Told me what was good, what needed improvement. It was just such a good experience, such a wonderful experience, going through that process with you.
Great, great.
And also when you offered that I could use the workbook, like this was even before it was freely available, you gave me permission to use it. And I've used it in my introductory course for years now. And all of those people are sending it out to more people. And it's really being spread far and wide, and people are getting so much out of it.
Thank
So
you.
thank you.
Burak Malkoç would like to take over.
Malkoç, I am from Colorado, and I recently joined the Institute, and I'm working with Andres, Bob, and Vicki Hutzell. So I would like to thank you, first of all, for all your contributions. Second, thank you for sharing them. My question is, living a purposeful life is very useful, very practical, and has been known for millennials, right? So, but my point is that does will to meaning actually increase a person's physical and mental energy? What is the correlation between the will to meaning and then the personal energy?
I don't know of any studies specifically on energy. I know that a few years ago, I went to a workshop on psychoneurophysiology, and was surprised to hear them talking about the origins of that whole area of the interaction of the mind and the body goes back to Frankl. So I would guess you have more energy when you're motivated, and you're more motivated when you are focused on what's important or valuable to you. But actual studies of that, I just haven't looked for them, I guess.
Okay. Any source that you can share with me that like you mentioned, maybe I need to listen a little bit more carefully to write down what was the group that you mentioned? Something neuroscience?
Neuropsychophysiology or psychoneurophysiology
Okay.
or psychoneuroimmunology. I've seen a number of terms there. Neuropsychoimmunology.
So
It's
something
confusing
related to
enough
maybe.
just for what it is, let alone how many ways they've said it.
Got it. Okay, excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Who would like to take over?
I have a question.
Yeah, please go ahead, Abdel.
Yes. Do you see me?
I do.
Okay. Thank you so much for everything you have shared with us. This is, for me personally, this is not just meaningful or peaceful or purposeful or whatever. The only thing that I need to focus on is how to motivate our spirit. Now, intellectually, emotionally, and everything, physically, everything is fine. But we are losing the spirit, particularly when there is a crisis. And I'm talking about the IDPs and the refugees in Africa during civil wars. I am not talking about patients in the hospitals or no. I am talking about the positive impact of logotherapy for the IDPs and the refugees who almost lost purpose, meaning, and everything. How we can bring them back again to life.
One of the things that I'm a strong believer in is the idea of getting together groups and brainstorming. So while I don't have an answer to your question, I think if you ask it to groups of people who might have ways of doing it, the way I would do things then is I would try to get those ideas put together, put them into an article, send them to the current rendition of the International Forum for Logotherapy, get that out there for other people to be thinking about. How can we do this? I wish I had an easy, straightforward answer. But one of my many sayings that used to hang on my office wall is that every problem has a very straightforward, simple to understand wrong answer. And I don't want to give you that wrong answer, which I don't really have.
Can I give an answer here? Hello.
Are you talking to me?
Yeah.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. Do you remember that Frankl speaks about arguments for a tragic optimism?
Okay.
So every life, each life of each human being contains arguments for a tragic optimism.
Yes.
And when people are in crisis, the tragedy is in forefront. But the optimistic arguments are in the background, and we could change that. That's one way to look at it. The other way is, I want to thank Dr. Hutzell first. We met in 1993 in Toronto, and you ignited my focus for the past 30 years on existential analysis, according to Frankl. And Frankl mentions that the really existential values are pre-logical and non-reflected. And that's the treasure. That's the barn with the harvest. And to get into that is there is a simple way to do that. I could share that, but that would take a long time. But I did design a simple method to do that. And I think I've published also about it. The experience of people finding out who they authentically are, looking at these non-reflected pre-logical values, is a lifesaver and helps people to rebuild their futures, and not to forget the past. We cannot change the past, but we can build a future.
Yes.
And in my opinion, the main thing in logotherapy is first find these values, which are pre-logical and non-reflected. Find those. Those are six. One could comprise them into 6 words that really matter to someone, and then build a sentence from it, beginning with I. And then building upon that, a 7-session logotherapy intervention, helping those people to really to dig into these values, which are the attitudinal values. And like everything in our lives, the way to hell is paved with good intentions if you don't follow up with deeds. And how that's where I connected to Dr. Hutzell. Meaningful purpose and goals need to be followed up and bring into reality. And no matter who you are and what you lived through, this is a possibility. And I was very grateful to find out about it by reading your workbook, Dr. Hutzell.
So you are telling us that actions speak louder than words.
Yeah.
May I give you my number, or you give me your number so that we can keep texting, and I will text you my email address so that we can continue to communicate?
We can please refer to Mendu.
Mendu.
He
Yeah.
will.
Okay.
Yep.
Mendu. Mendu. Well, can you take my number and give it to him? Because I need to.
I have your number up there.
Yes. Okay. Okay, Mendu. Thank you.
May I add another thing? From the height of my age, I would tell you that I believe that the answer is love.
Love needs to be redefined.
Love
in
for
these
life.
days. Yes.
Also,
love for life is a very big challenge.
Yeah.
Particularly through difficult times and times of challenges.
Yeah, that's the defiant power of the human spirit.
Okay.
It's based on love.
Okay, so
despite
why don't
everything and everybody, I want to live because I love to live.
Okay, why don't we just focus on spirit then?
While because the noetic dimension, as I try to get away from the word spirit, because we have to communicate with other professionals in the field, and the word spirit doesn't fit. It's too religious in many opinions. So the noetic dimension, which contains the dynamics of our existence, and that's where we can talk openly, because as anybody knows, before an answer comes, there is a question. And even all the answers of science have a question going in front. And I think it's good to begin with the question and to avoid metaphysical or too philosophical things that most people don't even understand because they never studied.
Okay, then if we are avoiding the metaphysical, that means we are living in denial.
I don't avoid the metaphysical. I don't talk about it. It's the source of life. Huh? I ask my patients, what can you do to bring light? Yeah? What can you do to bring more light? Because the darkness you went through, we all share darkness, but the light is coming tomorrow.
Okay.
How do you contribute to the light? And then I don't have to use the word spirit.
Why you don't want to use the word spirit?
While it's too physical, too philosophical or religious. And I live in Germany, and they are not philosophical and they're not religious. They want to have sober answers and sober words, practical. And that's what logotherapy is. It's very practical.
How can logotherapy relate to the Sufi?
I don't know Sufi. I went to school with Sufi, but I forgot what she was about. I married another one.
It is a very good question.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Now Aviva Gross would like to take over.
Hi. I just want to respond to what you said about the IDP camps. As has been said, logotherapy gives us practical tools. And the situation that these people are in, obviously they need therapy, but that is not available. And at the moment, that's not practical. They need to build, or they need to be shown to build a tribe or tribes, because that's what everybody needs, but even more so when one is displaced. So they need to be shown that they have roles, to be, like you said, to show by doing.
Yes.
To foster a community using the creative, as has been said, the experiential and attitudinal values, to empower them, to show them that they do have power, they do have choice, and they can discover the meaning. So that I'm saying as a logotherapist, but I also want to add just quickly, my father was a Holocaust survivor, and he was in a DP camp in Italy. And the way he tells the stories, it was fantastic. You know, he was by the beach and they heard the waves. And, you know, he never really went into a lot of traumatic stuff about the Holocaust. And he met someone and they had children and he sewed her an outfit and all this stuff. And then this shows how crazy life is. I live in Israel in a really tiny place. And my husband went for, it's called a parliament. It's a bunch of usually old men that meet and talk about things. And there was a guy there, and he was talking about the fact that he was in a DP camp in Italy, and he knew my father. And he said he remembers him because most people were just lying around all day. They had no life in them, had no spirit. And my dad was always running around, interested in things, doing things, active. So the reason why I'm bringing that up is because, you know, in a DP camp especially, they basically died. Their life has died. Everything they've known has died, and they need to rebuild themselves. And as human beings, most human beings who are healthy, mentally healthy, get satisfaction from helping others. And by helping others, we get something back. And I think that is the focus specifically in what you asked in these DP camps, to give them something to do and to achieve, which will give them back their self-respect, their meaning in life. So I hope that's helped.
It's helped. Thank you.
Egli Imon, I guess.
Yes, it is. Thanks so much, Mende, for pronouncing my name correctly. I'm joining from Calgary, Canada, and I'm working palliative medicine, and I'm training currently in logotherapy under Dr. Francis. So I'm very privileged to be here, and thank you, Bob and Vicki, for the beautiful recount on your career. It's quite inspiring. I'm very humbled to be here, truly hearing the beautiful story, and also how logotherapy has found you, and it keeps finding you at every step of the way. My question for you, Bob and Vicki, to me, it seems like there is a thread of meaning throughout your lives. And it's beautiful how you encounter so many meaningful people along the way. It seems to me, at least from what I can appreciate, that there is this internal compass you have. And if I may ask this question, I wanted to know if it's possible. Is there any, are you finding throughout this journey, is it meaningful conversations and meaningful encounters that have guided you into the right path, or is it reflection, or what kind of things do you do for reflection to actually help you guide what is the best step in the next step period of career or life or in this journey? Thank you.
I would say I'm a strong believer in writing things down. And I was, even before our memory started to fade to where we have to write things down. So one example there is that I keep a list of meaningful activities every day. And some people have similar lists that are their honey-do lists or other kinds of have-to-do lists. My list is a meaningful activities list. So at night, I am thinking ahead as to what's most meaningful to get done tomorrow. And every morning I get up and review that. And it often gets altered as the day goes on. But keeping that in mind, it keeps me focused every day. At the end of the day, I can look back and say, okay, I checked off this, 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 and this. I guess I did get some things done that moved me in the direction that I considered meaningful. Now, how do I know what's meaningful? I think in terms of my values. And one way to get back to my values is that workbook that we've mentioned before. I think the current version does not have my or Mary's values in it, but the original versions, we actually used our own values hierarchies in there. But I don't think the current one has that. I think we had a more general set of values hierarchies. So for me, it's writing it down and think about it. It's like a lot of things. If you think about it, you'll get some things figured out. If you don't think about it, you'll go off in crazy directions depending upon what you heard on the television or saw in what you were reading. So to get me to think about it, I write it down. Write it down, keep it where I can look at it and look at it frequently.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
More questions, comments? Dida, would you like to take over?
Well, I don't have any question, but I just maybe I would just mention that the 2 times I gave a lecture in Dallas, I don't know whether you remember it, Bob, but you immediately asked that it should be sent to the forum. The first time I gave the lecture, and the second time at the last moment after I was in the program, I couldn't come. I have broken my leg, and then Bob, Dr. Barnes suggested that Teria Chantal would give my lecture. And at both times, you suggested immediately that it would be sent to the forum. And I haven't done so until today. And sometimes I'm so very sorry for that. And sometimes I really kind of, eat myself over it. And I don't know who the editor nowadays is. Maybe you can tell me, but they probably have always a certain subject that they're asking for. Is that correct?
They have gone towards some subjects, but I don't think always. You can find it on the Institute's website. It's Rodney Deeser is the editor now. And yeah, I would continue to encourage you to send it in.
Yeah. Yeah, really, sometimes I think about it, and when Batya and Gideon have shared how much you've been helpful in giving advices and editing it, I remember the only thing I didn't know was the length of it at the time, but that can be easily solved, I guess.
I think it's different now because it's all electronic. As we were limited by, we were on paper. And you can only make them so big on paper without running into greater costs.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't think length is as big an issue as it used to be.
I see. It's good to
And
hear.
if I could interrupt, I think I would invite all of you to check the website if you have something you would like to share. Rodney is usually looking for additional manuscripts, and he's, 6 months or a year out. But if you have something that you would think of being of interest to the logotherapy community, please submit it and contact him, because he is following very much on what Joe and Bob and Vicki did to encourage more and more involvement. So I think you will get a very welcoming response, even if it is involving, some recommendations to update things. But it is open. They are publishing, and Rodney is interested if any of you would like to submit.
Yeah, great.
Thank you.
Any more comments?
Robert, can you please spell again your email? Because I wrote already and it was back.
Okay, yes. It's our last name, Hutzell's,
Yes.
so you add an S, at Iowa Telecom, IOWATELECOM.net, NET.
Maybe you
Hutzell.
can put it in the chat, Bob.
Why don't you put
Write
it
it in the chat. That would be easy.
I can try that. That might
Yes.
be beyond my skill set, but we'll see.
So maybe
Thanks a
Mamdu
lot.
can
Yeah,
easily do
I
that.
can write it.
Yeah,
Okay.
Please do.
Yeah.
Please
Yeah.
do.
Good.
Um,
Because I'm trying and I can't
so
figure it out. But if Memda can do it, great.
yeah, I will do it.
Yeah. If there is a minute, I would like to tell Burak, who was asking before about psychoneuroimmunology or physiology, that Bob has answered you. I don't see you, Burak, but
I'm here. I'm here.
okay. I just want to let you know that Dr. Kanda, one of the trainers of the program of logotherapy in South Africa, he's a doctor. He runs a hospital, and I believe he's researching that. So if
Can
you
you say
want,
the name one more time?
Dr. Kanda, Kanda.
Got it. Perfect. Thank
He's
you.
very interested in that, in this subject.
Okay.
If you want, you can write to me and I can let you have his email or something, or
I
phone
will.
number.
Dida Kimor. Okay.
Yeah, I can write my email here.
Yes, please. That's the best part of the conference. Obtain very helpful email
Yeah.
addresses.
Anyway, Memdu always has them.
Dr. Hutzell, we were exchanging emails with you from an email, hutzels@windstream.net. Is it
That will
still
work.
valid?
Yeah, it's the same thing. I don't know why it comes
I'll
out sometimes one
share
way
it
and
then.
sometimes the other.
Okay, I'll write it down.
That's
And
one of those many computer skills that is beyond my ability. But they both work and they come to the same spot. I'll see one just as fast as the other.
You have Vicki on your side for that, don't you?
If I may, I would like to add few things. First of all, Dr. Hutzell was my teacher for the fourth module in logotherapy, and I got to know of him while editing my paper, and I'm fascinated, really, his dedication, his persistence. And as a foreigner, I tried to use, complex words He made it simply, he simplified it how many times? Maybe 7 or 8 times, back and forth. He dealt with it. I'm really appreciate with that. And I have a very good news to you. At least you can reach the workbook from the Institute's publication page, and you can download it immediately. I'm not a psychotherapist. I'm doing coaching. I'm using that worksheet very oftenly, and I'm the student of William Maas as well, and he also established a technique called, he tried to introduce here, nominal Socratic dialogue. Superb, and it's been published in the international forum. So I can, if anyone would like to attain it, I can provide it to you.
Yes, we need it.
For Ukraine, everything is very amazing. Please.
Yes, just send it to us.
So Andreas would like to take over.
Yeah, just at this moment, first of all, okay, thank you very much, Bob and Vicky, for your stories and bring us closer to this old history of Logotherapy Institute. And but as Mendo just mentioned, Willem, with the nominal Socratic dialogue, I wrote him in a chat, and maybe now I just ask publicly. Maybe it might be one idea to introduce this nominal Socratic dialogue here as a LogoChat, in some form, in a maybe shortened form, because it's a very interesting thing, but I didn't get through by reading only this, your introductions, and that was just my impulse. But this you can sort out with Mendo, who always is searching for some conductor of these LogoChats.
Willem has to answer that, don't you?
You can answer, but you don't need to.
I'm very pleased to hear that. My method is not completely unknown, but I will consider it. My English is not that fluent, I write better than I speak.
Today I learned that it is perfect. I heard you speaking more today, and I learned that it is perfect anyway.
May I add one thing to remember in logotherapy? Frankl once referred to Hillel. And Hillel had rules, and one of the most important rule is binyan af mikatuf echad. To build mikatuf echad. To build a complete house from one text. That is the secret of meaning, how meaning works in your life.
Wow.
How your spirit works in your life. It's the safe house that rebuilds your future.
How beautiful. How beautiful. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And amazing.
Yeah, it's simple. That's why logotherapy is so simple in all kinds of situations. I live in Eastern Germany, that has been demolished by 2 dictatorships over 80 years, and they're not very spiritual. But if you remember this rule, this simple rule, you can always find a core element in what people tell you, and then turn it around and help them to recover their vitality. So my next neighbor, for instance, got a message about he has stage 4 liver cancer, and was asking me we're just talking about life over the fence with a beer. So I said to him, he was devastated. And I said to him, you have really got a chance. And he asked me, a chance for what? I said, you have grandchildren, don't you? So you are a guide now. That's your new life. You are a guide now. You must show them that you can live with this and that you can live well and die well. And
how beautiful.
He stood up and played with his grandchildren, and he's still around beyond the prognosis. That's psycho-neuro immunology.
Yeah, at best.
At best.
Yeah,
That's
it answers. Yeah. As you said, the logotherapy is very practical.
Yeah,
and this answers Burak's question about vitality, right? Yeah.
So it revitalizes and it motivates and revitalizes the somatic dimension. It motivates the psychological dimension, and it recovers someone's dignity. And that's in the spiritual.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So I will consider your question. I will talk to Memdu.
I'm going to jump in. Willem, please, can you write into chat what you said in German? Can I have the quote in German, please?
Which quote?
That you said that you build a house.
The rule, the Hillel rule. Hillel lived 2,200 years back.
Something. Yeah.
I didn't know that Hiller's rule. Okay, Hiller's rule. Okay.
Hillel.
Rabbi Hillel.
Rabbi, one of the great rabbis.
Yeah, Rabbi Hillel.
First century, I guess.
And Frankl refers to him one time.
Yeah, a lot of times, actually. A lot of times.
And one of the rules, Hillel gave 7 rules. And the first rule is to build a house from one text, to rebuild your life from one event. And the event is, who am I? Who am I really? When everything is away, when everything is taken away, who am I? What am I doing here? And I tell a story about the creation. There was a mistake in the creation. God made light to begin with, so light comes to earth. It was there, and it was chaos and darkness. And chaos and darkness is a nice word for dictatorships, misery. And misery and dictatorship ask light, what are you going to do here? Who are you? Why are you here? And light says, I don't know. I'm just shining here. And the others say, we don't need that. We don't want that. So light goes back to God and complains, what did I do wrong? Why don't I know what I'm to do here? And God says, if you go back and they ask you the same question, you say just light. You will see. You say day. If you say day, you will see what happens. And light goes back to darkness and chaos, and they ask the same question, and the light says day. And then half of the misery is gone, half of the darkness is gone. It's only night what is left from it, and the light becomes the day. And so, about spiritual, you can be grateful that you live another day, and that you can bring light. And whoever you are, whatever happens to you, the light from within, the light from the person that you are. That's what the world needs.
Mm-hmm. And a shift in the mind occurs.
The shift in the mind occurs. That's the reverse, the that Frankl talks about. The background comes into the foreground, just for a minute. For a minute is enough. And the darkness must step back and make room for the light. But that is simple. And that's what is interesting. It's not a game or a theory. It's a very practical, living way of communicating and helping people. And I started learning that from Dr. Hutzell. He pointed that out in his work in the VA.
May I ask a question, please?
Bernadette Southwick would like to take over.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much. This touches on Willem. I don't want to take long here, but...
You're not well heard, Bernadette.
Oh. Can you hear me now?
Mm-hmm.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. This touches on Willem. This is just so beautiful. I'm so glad it's recorded. I had a question moments before you spoke about when we were talking about attitudinal choice, Socratic dialogue, and then also how to help. The man was asking from Africa. And I'm a student on my 4th course right now. And I arrived at personally through an experience I had in November, not to go into it, but with that, a distinction between attitudinal choice and via attitude. And then this experience and through the course and the questions that were asked, I feel it evolved within me to this level, which you were describing as dark and light and this dialogue. Not that way, but you did touch upon choice at that noetic level. And my basic question was, does Frankl reference, I feel like there's another layer of attitudinal choice. I feel like that's like at the mind psychological level. And then what I experienced, which I was also wondering if this is the point which I did make, and I had a discussion with an Ignatius priest, which I'm going to do some reading on discernment. So that I was wondering is this, does the Socratic and everything evolve? You become aware, there is always choice, it's an attitude, but that's at a mind level. And then as you build that and use that, that opens up the perhaps noetic dimension, you want to talk spiritual. And there, I was wondering if you could experience what is called the spiritual tension. I think I read that in Fabry's book somewhere. And I guess my question is, does Frankl distinctly say in the noetic also this choice and building that or how that evolves? And I feel like it touches upon what you've just described, Willem.
Glad to have helped you.
So all of you are so knowledgeable and experienced in this area. So I just wanted to know, has that ever been brought up like this? We don't have obviously a mindful choice of it, but is there yet we might discover through our noetic this choice, perhaps this for me it's told me about a couple of things. It was faith related, and things that I got such clarity from it of how I felt and what needs yet to be done and needs to be worked on. I don't want to use the word worked on, but I feel like it must closely resemble Holocaust survivors, etc. What those moments are, they're almost beyond the choice of this mind level. Yes.
Yeah, it's beyond. It's what Frankl calls unconscious, and it's meant to remain hidden and unconscious, because if it would be conscious, we could produce meaning. We could just do it and sell it. I would like to produce 10 kilos of meaning. No, I don't even know for myself what brings me to what I do. It is like you meet someone and this one asks you a question or tells you a story, and then it happens. You improvise and follow your inner voice, the heart of your heart. And that's where your wisdom lies. And where we got that from, we don't know. Frankl says we don't know what makes us persons. We don't know. And science doesn't even know. Huh? So I'm always surprised when people leave all their luggage behind, their physical misery, their social misery, their psychological agonies, and suddenly rise for a moment. And that's where you catch your fish and talk about what are we going to do next?
Find the light.
I think Frankl,
follow the light.
Frankl does give an answer where it comes from, Willem. I think Frankl says it comes from the transcendent, which is our origin.
But we have no access to the origin. You remember, Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. We have no idea what Echad means.
But we have glimpses. Yeah, we have glimpses of that. And
exactly. Wait for the glimpse. That is the light.
Right. And these glimpses gives us the faith that we do know somehow that it exists.
Yeah, and that we don't live in vain.
Right.
That's the most important thing, to help someone retrieve his or her dignity, that it is not in vain. It has a purpose. It does mean something. And no one is, or what the doctor tells you, I can't help you any further, go home and die. That's cruelty. Because they are afraid.
I have a quick question for Memduh Bey, merhaba. Size bir mesaj attım.
Yes, from the chat?
Yes.
Chat'te?
Evet.
I missed someone?
What did you say, Burak?
Oh, I wanted to send a message, a personal message to Memduh, and I wanted to flag him in case he didn't see it. Apology, I spoke Turkish, okay?
I couldn't.
My parents are
Just a
Turkish.
moment, please.
I'm American, but my parents are Turkish. I learned Turkish from them, yes.
Lots of. Okay.
No, in the chat. It's in the chat.
Yes, I'm going through that chat.
Click into your.
No, he has sent you a personal chat. So you need to click above. You need to click of Burak.
Your image.
Yeah, I see.
So nice.
Okay.
New technique.
We'll keep in touch.
Okay, excellent. Thank you for your response.
I think
I just
our
want
time
to,
is.
Yeah.
We are exceeding.
Normally the after party that we have at this time. I just want to mention about this vitality that you were talking about with your neighbor, Willem. About this vitality, David Gutman, Professor David Gutman, that I interviewed him in our conference, The Scope of the Human Potential. Yeah. He gave such, I don't know if you remember, he gave that example of someone in a wheelchair that because of the spark of meaning that he suddenly had and the enthusiasm, he suddenly got out of the wheelchair and started dancing.
Wow.
That can really give force when we are connected to meaning and faith and enthusiasm.
So if you
And
see
by the way, Memdu and me are planning to maybe show this interview. There have been many people who asked for that, to show again this interview on the LogoChat in one of
Yes.
the next ones.
Yeah, should be.
When is the next one, please? Dr. Dida, great to hear from you.
2 months time. Every 2 months, the first Saturday.
Got it.
Okay.
Actually, tonight we have 2 pillars, Dr. Robert and Vicki Hutzell, but we have more pillars, Gideon and Willem Mas as my teacher. I hope we can convince them to lead the future LogoChats, because let me translate from my own language. They are the pine trees of logotherapy, the pillars of logotherapy. We should lots of things to learn from them. I hope, and I would like to thank you, our previous president, Dr. Cynthia Wimberly, who convinced Dr. Bob and Vicki to lead this LogoChat. Thank you so much.
I would like to thank you, Memo, very much for conducting this chat. And I would like to say thank you very much for your help, because without your help, I wouldn't be with you today. Thank you.
Let me tell you that Gideon has turned 90 this year.
Great.
I'm revealing to you
Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
secrets from Israel.
And this community is unique.
Yes.
Right.
And Abdel has something to say, I guess.
Yes, I think in conclusion, light from within relates to our human spirit. Our human spirit relates to our faith, whether we like it or not.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I really
That's a very good concluding remark.
Thank you so much, and I really enjoyed every moment of it.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Dr. Dida, I'm going to be sending an email, okay?
Okay. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bob,
Thank you.
Bob and Vicki.
Thank you again.
Thank you all.
Dr. Bob and Vicki.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you all.
Bye. Bye.
Great.
Thank you. Great.
It's a wonderful, wonderful meeting.
I will be disclosing this LogoChat in the Institute's webpage.
Okay.
You mean the recording?
Yes.
Great.
Take care.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye, Andreas.
Yeah. Oh, depends who still remains.
For the after party?
Unfortunately,
Yes.
I have to leave. I loved after party, but...
So you have to leave. So then, no after party today.
No after party
Next time.
Next time.
Then we do it next time. Then,
Next time.
yeah.
I have to give a lift to my daughter. Sorry.
You could bring your daughter to the chat. It might be more easier.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Then see you next time. Yeah.
See you. See
It
you
was a
all.
wonderful meeting. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Gideon.